I've had worse said about me. I'm Tommy T. I'm an alcoholic. If anybody's got an illegal script for Adderall, now's the time. Remember, if you crush it up, it'll hit you quicker. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about step 12. My sober date is April 8th, 1995. My home group is the Decker Avenue Step Group of Staten Island, not the Bronx. One of the most disrespectful flyers ever written in AA, in my opinion. And that's a tough thing when you feel bad when you're from Staten Island and you want to brag about it. So it's, but we're a 12 and 12 group, and we're a small group. And but if you walk into that meeting, kind of make a wrong turn and end up on Staten Island and walk into our home group on Monday night, you'll be greeted with a warm handshake, a real bad cup of coffee, similar to here. And but you won't leave that meeting without a sponsor if you're suffering from alcoholism. And you'll get a free big book. And if you stay with us, you're going to go through these 12 steps. You're going to be familiar with the concepts and the traditions, and you're going to stay. That's what most of them do. See, because I'm sure Philly is exactly, based on the neighborhood we're in right now, I'm assuming that you have the problems that we have on Staten Island, and we're losing a kid a day. This is life and death to me. It always wasn't. It was about chasing the newcomer. It was about doing other things here. So, you know, over a 27-year run here, there's been many, many ups and downs. Sometimes somebody will get up here at the lectern / podium and, you know, you'll think we got it all together and everything's roses from the day we walked in. That's not my case. That's not my story. The only thing that I hope that you get out of this story, or me talking on step 12, is that, hey, that guy Tommy T really loves AA. He's a grateful AA. Because, man, I didn't even know a life like this existed. I didn't know I could function on the level that God has me functioning on pretty well today. And all I got to do is get out of it. But there's things that we have to do. You know, I'm a pretty avid reader. I also have a fear of being judged. So when my senior friends in AA read a book, I got to read that book. Or I got to highlight that book. I got to underline and star that book. I got to look up every word in that book, because now I got to know that book better than you know that book. And then he comes up with, you know, there's 225 promises in the big book. Shit, I didn't know that. It's a great life being an alcoholic. I mean, when you get to the point where you can really laugh about your thoughts and hopefully not so much about your actions. My actions are solid today, I'm here to report. My head hasn't gotten much better. You know, and that's just the way it is. But we're going to talk about having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. Not maybe having. You're going to have one. You're going to have one. We try to carry this message to others, and we practice these principles in all our affairs. The kind of forgotten talk of the step 12, I feel like, you know, we'll talk about sponsorship, we'll talk about how many guys I help and all this stuff, but how am I living, you know? What answer are you going to get if you talk to my crazy wife, Cheryl? Cheryl never listens to my talk. She's not here. This is awesome, I got to tell you. It's kind of like a payback. But what is a spiritual experience, right? So on page 27 in our book, I did not bring my book into the talk. I grabbed one off the window ledge, I want to be honest. It says, they be the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements, ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. I had my first spiritual experience at 11, when I first tried alcohol. From a frightened boy with a tightness of chest, that's how my fear shows up, that's how my malady of not being good enough, not fitting in, not knowing how to act shows up, was removed instantly when I drank booze. A warm, fuzzy feeling came over. You hear it all the time. I mean, I like the analogy of Popeye. For those older folks in the room, I ate that can of spinach and boom, the muscles were there. I could talk to the girls. I could fight with the guys. I was a smaller kid, and I grew a couple inches. I looked a little better, and it was wonderful. But unfortunately, what happens was all the morals and the principles my parents and my grandmother, who was a driving force in my life, a Slovak woman, that's why I love Nicolette's talk. That accent, I know that accent, you know. That took me back, so thank you for that. All those good things they tried to instill in me went out the window. Because when this alcoholic drinks, all bets are off. I started to drink for fun and escape. But at the end, I was drinking from all the guilt and shame and horrors of the life of a selfish alcoholic. And I don't think any talk, you need to know who's standing behind here. We need to talk, I'll qualify a little bit. And I'm going to try to do a 2-minute, because I think wherever Pete is, he's going to be doing this in about 10 minutes. So I'll get through this quick. When I started chasing alcohol and other substances, and if you were silly enough to love me, I was going to break your heart in some way. I was going to let you down in some way. If you were my friend, I was going to lie to you and I was going to steal to you. If you entered into any type of romantic relationship with me, the tornado paragraph sells me short. 17 years old, I put a boy up for adoption, never to see again. He's 45 years old right now. His name's Matthew. I've never met him. I devastated that family. There were unwanted pregnancies that I was man enough to pay for and terminate them, but not man enough to show up for, to support that woman. Devastated those women. At 25 years old, I saw all my friends graduating college and getting married, and the guys I drank with, at least earlier in the evening, they were kind of getting their stuff together. That'll fix me, I'll get married. All right, my girlfriend was pregnant, but, you know, I got married, you know. And when you drink like I drink, that just means I'm running out on an 8-month pregnant girl, not to see that boy for another 8 years. How do I handle that? I get twice as drunk on Christmas, 3 times as drunk on Father's Day, and I blame that woman for not letting me see my kid. I'll leave out the part that I'm a deadbeat dad. I'll leave out the part on why she threw me out. Don't you see what this world's doing to me? If you had a father like me, you'd drink like I drank too. And I ran with that for a long time because I had nothing else. The drinking and the other things got worse and worse and worse. The arrests came. There was 23 broken relationships. I only know that from inventory. I devastated people. Making those amends. People told me things I didn't even know I did. Not only that, is with the way I think I affected you, it might only be the tip of the iceberg. I had people tell me some very, very difficult things to listen to, but I was trained well. I listened quiet, and I prayed. When I came to you in 1995, I was $38,000 in debt to all the wrong people, not even including credit cards or legal debt. They were the bookies, the loan sharks, the drug dealers. I was in criminal court for the arrest that brought me in, loaded handgun, illegal substance with the intent to deal, drunk driving my 3rd time. My only defense was, Your Honor, I wasn't selling that. I just got paid. They were for self-consumption. That's the best defense I could raise back then. He didn't think it was funny either. But came in here a mess. And if a car backfired on Staten Island, I would jump over the hedges because I thought it was somebody taking a shot at me. I had moved back into Mom's house, you know. Mom, I did it again. Can I sleep on the couch? 35 years old, built really well, going to the gym 5 days a week, living on Mom's couch. Quite the package, ladies. Line up, you know. Let me just find somebody sicker than me in AA. I'll be fine, you know. And we all have different experiences, how we come in. I love the fact that, you see, the big book was not mentioned on Staten Island in 1995. Oh, I hate to say this on a tape thing, but we used to call Pete Padre Pete, because Pete was one of the bravest alcoholics I know talking about God in 1995. Nobody was doing it. And we got introduced to a guy named Mark Houston, who was Pete's sponsor for a while, and a guy, Joe Hawk. And they came in, and you know, the power of this 12th step, the power of carrying this message, they revolutionized recovery on Staten Island. Guy from Colorado, guy from Texas, Don Pritz was their guy. And these guys just came in and started talking about an AA we did not know. I did not know existed. 18 months in the fellowship, and I'm at a place where I want to put a bullet in my throat because the arrest that brought me in finally got me fired from the Department of Ed. A 17-year career, you don't understand. The old timers at AA are great. You know, and I do not want to discount the fellowship because those men that listened to me those first 18 months, they introduced me to God in a diner. That's where I met God. I didn't believe in him, but I met him there because these guys would talk about it over and over. You got to put it in God's hands, Tom. You got to turn it over. They didn't know the steps the way that we might by going through this first 164 pages and doing the work that we did, but they lived these steps. They read the literature. They practiced these. They went to church. That's what they did. It was a different, you know, generation of folks, but they had the gift of listening. And I have to check myself even today on how's my gift of listening. Not so much with a newcomer. I'll listen to an hour, 2 hours of newcomer nonsense after the home group. It's with Cheryl after a day of work, my wife, who I love dearly. And I have to stare at her forehead and say, don't look at the TV, don't look at the TV, don't look at the TV. Pay attention, pay attention. You know. And then I'm like a dog in the park, squirrel, and you know, and I'm looking somewhere else and doing something. You're not listening to me. I know, I'm trying though, you know. I know you are, Tom, but do better. You know. So all these things and this beautiful process, the way, you know, I would love to say that every speaker up here from last night to tonight was great, but I'd be lying. Because I'm sitting over there telling my story in my head. I didn't hear a word you guys said. I know Nicoletta got a little messy and cried a little bit, you know, but it's all about me. And I'm embarrassed to say that, but I'll say it. But this process brings us to a place that I had a miraculous transformation. Huge emotional uplift in my spirit, in my morals, in my principles that I didn't even know existed. And it was given to me by a bald-headed bookie named George, covered in tats, who could drop an F-bomb in the same sentence as God. I found that incredibly attractive. I did not want to sell roses in the airport. I did not want to be a Jehovah. No offense to any Jehovah's here, it's just a reference. I was afraid of a spiritual life because I confused spirituality with religion. And religion doesn't work for me because I can't live up to those principles. Not with what I just told you I'm living with that I did. Oh, and there was other stuff I didn't even tell you about. I mean, I'm the kid at 16 that steals money from that grandmother that I said was so influential while she was dying of cancer. And the last words I said to my grandmother before she died was, I didn't take that money, Grandma. Live with that without drinking. I couldn't. There was a lot of other stuff, but I was not a nice guy, and I didn't know any other way. And this guy, George, after I lost that job, see, we don't know what God's going to do with us, and that was a theme, I think, throughout the weekend here today, and I did listen to everybody, and, you know, God's got better plans for us than we could ever have for ourselves. But I made that mistake, and it's in the book. Every mistake I've made, they warned me about, but I made it anyhow. I had to, like, feel it, you know? I put the material before the spiritual those first 18 months. I went after the money. I wanted to pay back things. When I lost my career, I started a business. I tried to do everything I could to manipulate a successful outcome. And then I lose that job, and I'm crying in a amends meeting. And when I got 12th step, there was 3 guys that came over to me. It was Lucky George, the bald-headed bookie from Brooklyn. It was Keep It Simple Richard, a retired fireman. And it was Cocaine Vinny, this little guy, this little dude. Pete knows him. And, you know, they were about 60. I was 36 at the time, 37. And they said, God wants you on the golf course tomorrow. And I'm like, geez, these corny bastards, and I can't take it. I said, didn't you hear what I said? I just lost my job. They said, I have no money to play golf. They said, we didn't ask you for a financial statement. We asked you to play golf. We'll pick you up at 8 o'clock. These guys got me on that golf course. They knew I was in trouble. If you would talk to them later on, they would say, we saw this kid slipping away from us here in AA, and we figured we better do something. What I didn't know is George just had an experience at a workshop, a big book workshop, and went through the 12 steps, and my boy was on fire. They matched me up in the cart with him. He started giving me the pitch, that 12-step pitch. And when you're on fire, you can give a good pitch, right? And he was attractive to me because he used plain language. And he said, Tom, do you believe you never have to feel like this again? I said, no, I don't. He said, well, I can promise you that. Nobody ever gave me a promise here in AA. They told me to not drink and go to another meeting. Not knocking that. It kept me around here long enough to hear a message from a man with depth and weight. And he went on to say, I said, George, I'm not going to drink. He says, I'm afraid you're going to drink. I said, I'm not going to drink. I'm too much of a coward for that. I know that that's not my answer. I said, but I'm going to put a bullet in my mouth. And he just so corny. Well, Tom, that's a pretty permanent response to a temporary problem. He said, there's 3 billion people in China don't even know you lost your job. Like he just made fun of my predicament. And I was like, these guys, you'd say, we're not laughing at you. Yes, you are. I said something, you laughed. You're laughing at me. Like, how else does this work, right? These guys were awesome. And all of a sudden, George told me, if you're willing to come to my house once or twice a week, he was retired. I was fired. I had time. He said, I'll cook dinner. He said, we'll go through these first 164 pages. He said, I don't have a program of recovery. I follow the one that AA lays out, and it works quite well. I won't tell you anything to do that's not in that book or that I haven't done myself. I found that incredibly attractive because I saw old sponsors abusing new guys. It was not kind and loving when I came in, I'm telling you. And I heard free dinner, and he was Italian from Brooklyn. I figured he could cook. I said, I'm in, And that started the journey, and it was a miraculous first time through the 12 steps, and I hope yours was too. And if you haven't done it, please give yourself a break. Do it. Doing that 4th step, making those amends. Oh my God, no, I can't do that. Well, you can live with it. That's a lot tougher. Get rid of it. Not cope with it. Not stuff it down. Get rid of it. I love that analogy. If your mother told you to go down and clean your room, you'd yell, you'd kick, you'd scream, like we do here in AA. But if she went down and told you, go downstairs, throw everything old out that you don't want. I'm going to replace it with new stuff. We'd run over grandma to get down there and, get out of the way, old lady. I'm getting some new stuff here, But that's exactly what happens here. Exactly what happens here. And somewhere along the line, in hindsight, I can point to it. My attitude shifted. My moment was in amends. It was, I balked on amends. The fellowship tricked me into making amends. I'm outside of a group with my road dogs, smoking Marlboros one after another, checking out the newcomer girls. Who's got less than 90 girls, The old saying in Brooklyn, Pete, right? Get them on their back before they get on your feet. It's horrible. It's horrible. So, it was an actual saying. So much for the spiritual talk. And I had stopped making amends, and I was getting sick again. I didn't make any. I got petrified. And this guy, Bobby, comes up and asks me to speak at his home group on Saturday. It was a Thursday night. And I said, sure, I'm going through the steps with George. I'll do that, And he said, well, we're speaking on step 9. I was like, I have a list, but I haven't made any. No hesitation, pats me on the back. He says, well, good, go make a few amends. Let us know how they turn out. Fear of being judged by my friends and everything else. I did it. Made 3 to my mom, my dad, my sister. And I had a letter I had to write to read to grandma at the grave, and I did not know where she was buried. I knew the cemetery, I knew the area, but I did not go because I was so filled with guilt and shame when she died many years prior. So I had this letter, and I went up there, and I walked that cemetery, and I walked through it. Could not find her grave, and it's getting late. I got to get to the meeting. And I walked back to my car on a diagonal. I said, I got to go. Right next to where I parked my car. Anna Taraco. Hair on my neck stands up, bright sunny day, a lot of people in the cemetery. I take out this letter, very brief. I can't read it. I can read, I'm literate, I'm fairly intelligent. It starts, and people are looking at me like, what's going on over there, you know? When I read that letter, Grandma, something happened. I don't remember getting back in my car. I don't remember going to that group. I don't remember looking at my beepers, dating myself badly, but for 15 minutes and sharing on those 4 amends that I made, but I also do remember 12 or 15 guys coming over to me, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it, something's changing in you. I walked in the sunlight of the Spirit. Now, I don't want to go and say like I don't remember taking the steps to walk to my car, but it was like I just, and all of a sudden I'm at the meeting. It was crazy. It was crazy. But I know some of you in this room have had an experience like that where you know, nah, he's probably happened. And I went on a tear with those amends, and I started living in 10 and 11, as Pete so eloquently spoke about. And my sponsor was very big on telling me about amends, telling me about 11-step inventory, telling me about prayer and meditation. But I soon found out he wasn't doing any of those. I'm going into my evangelical stage of recovery at this point, thinking I know better than those guys with 20 years that kept me sober for 18 months. I definitely have already outgrown my sponsor. I'm not even through with the 12th step yet. And I left George right after that. At the same time I was going through the steps, there was a guy, this isn't going to go well. There was a guy, Joe Keegan, who was going through the steps, although he had 17 years sober at the time. But he was a raggedy biker dude with glasses and always the bandana and the leather and the chaps, and he would come into a meeting and take it hostage and share for 15 minutes on drama he created, cursing, yelling, screaming. They used to call him Angry Joe. He's going through the steps the same time I am. And all of a sudden I see him. The hair's short, parted on the side, wire rim glasses, no beard, no chaps, no nothing. He's studying to be a Montessori kindergarten teacher. And I'm like, I'm having an experience over here. But what is going on over there, right? And I was just drawn to that. And turns out we were from the same sponsorship tree. He did inventory the way I was taught to do inventory, all these things. And I found him very attractive, asked him to be my sponsor. He was my sponsor for the next 24 years. You know, William James talks about things in a spiritual experience that have in common. If anybody ever tried to read that book, I don't recommend it. Jesus, even Googled it and helped me through that one. But I did get a few things out of it, and there are common threads to a spiritual experience, and one is an emotional breakage, right? So for us in Alcoholics Anonymous, it's our bottom. I've hit many since I've been sober without the help of alcohol or without the removal of alcohol. But he also said, once having had that, there's things we have to do to maintain it, or else it will be transient, he called it, had to look that up. And it will fade. And that's, I think, the biggest trap that we face here in Alcoholics Anonymous. We settle. We seek happiness when we should be seeking joy. Happiness is based on circumstance. How much money do I have? How many possessions do I have? How good does she look? How good does she treat me? Joy is, I don't give a shit. I'm in a good place. Hey, Tom, how you doing today? Going through a little rough spot, but I'm okay, right? Not same old, same old. Give you an honest answer. Things are tough. My son's shooting 20 bags of dope a day, but I'm learning to let go of that. He's got a God and it ain't me. That's a different answer than you would get from me 20 years ago, right? And I owe it all to Joe. We had a Tuesday call where I would share 6 or 7 nights of inventory, whatever I did. We went through the steps many times over the years. We did stuff like steel on steel, and we held each other totally accountable. And he made me hang out with guys with more time with me that have practiced in these principles. He said, you think you're a big shot here on Staten Island. I sponsor a bunch of men. You know, I'm an old timer in the home group now. I hate that, you know. I mean, like, I kid around with the girls, they call me sir. I'm like, so I don't have a shot, you know? Like, I got cool shoes, you know, but it doesn't really work. And he brought me through so many things, even in his death. He listened to my inventory 6 days before he died. 6 months before he died, he knew he was going to die. And he said, it was during COVID. And he said, I'd like to get a Zoom meeting to go together. He sponsored at that point 13 men. There was never a miss. There was 13 of us on every Saturday morning. I got an idea. When we knew he was failing worse, he had trouble struggling through the Zoom meeting. His wife would later tell us that she would have to prop him up in the chair for the meeting, but he wasn't missing it. We brought all our sponsees on. We had 85 men on that meeting. And I didn't realize it at the time, but up in the left-hand corner, I'm taking you back to Zoom, whether you want to go there or not, there was a John Green and there was a Jack Green. And we're all sharing about thank you, Joe. All my guys were on, Fabian was on it. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. And then Jack Green shares, he said, Joe, you don't know me, but I sponsor your sponsor. I got 43 years or whatever it was, and I know all about you. But now you sponsor my son, John, and I just wanted to say thank you. I lost it. Lost it. Where do you get stuff like this? Nowhere I know of. Don't want to knock anybody's religion or anything like that, but I don't see stuff like that, even in the church world. See it here in AA, with broken folks like us, just trying to do it one day at a time. Joe taught me to walk with dignity and integrity, and that's not comfortable for a guy like me. I want a shortcut. I want a quick fix. I want instant gratification. He told me so many words of wisdom. Does anybody have a napkin? This is payback. This is payback. I goofed on Nicoletta for crying, and this is payback. But I went into a bad funk after that. But Joe knew me well enough. He said, I want you to promise me you're going to have a sponsor within 30 days. And I want you to tell your guys that you'll have one in 30 days. And I did that. I sent a text out to all the guys. And I said, Joe has asked me to get a sponsor. He said, we all know that you need adult supervision. So I did what I was told. And Christmas was coming. He died in November. I guess it's 2 years ago now. And my wife, Cheryl, I wish she was here. Wonderful AA. Crazy as they come. Tracks me like a moth to the flame, you know? And she bought me this really nice watch for Christmas to try to cheer me up. She's in real estate. She had some good month and went overboard and spent money we didn't have. It's kind of a theme in our house. She better never hear this. Oh, my God. But I opened it, and the kids were all watching, and they're videotaping it because they know something's coming. And I looked at it, and I said, isn't that the one that I wanted to get when I retired? Because I'm working a little longer. We agreed to pay for the kids' college, you know, so I'm working a little longer than I thought I would. And she said, I screenshotted it. 5 years ago, my wife screenshotted this and said someday she was going to get it to me. A guy like me, a guy that runs out on women, doesn't show up for women. And here's this woman taking her whole earnings for a couple of months and just putting it on this so I could have something to cheer up with. The watch was beautiful, and I knew it was very expensive, but she said, read the engraving. On the inside of this watch, it says WWJD. Some of my Christian friends might think it's, what would Jesus do? What would Joe do? I used to always say that. And I try to carry myself as if Joe was watching, because I know he is. Would I do that if Joe was here? Would I give that talk if Joe was here? Would I exaggerate that story if Joe was here? I wouldn't. See, because that's the magic of the 12th step. Joe spent so many hours with me, talking me through things and listening to all that inventory, that I have to give this back. It's not a matter that I want to. I don't. I'm really still not a nice guy. But when I'm asked to sponsor a man and take him through these 12 steps, I feel obligated. I feel obligated to Joe to do so. I'm going to make a harsh statement, and I hope it doesn't offend anybody, but if it does, good. If you had an experience with a man or woman and they took the time out of their busy, recovered life to sit with you and walk you through those first 164 pages, and you are not actively trying to do that now or doing that now, you're still as selfish as the day you walked in, and you should take a look at that. And if you do take a look at it, your life's going to take off. I don't think that we give this away to keep it. I think we give it away to get it. I learn more from my sponsees than I do my sponsor, and Joe taught me a lot. I have an obligation to Alcoholics Anonymous. You took a bum like me, and you gave me a life that I never dreamed existed. And I will always try to do that, because it's what Joe would want me to do. But more so, it's what God would want me to do. You know, going back to the sponsor side of step 12, I wrote a list of 3 men, one of which is in the room today, but we won't name any names, Pete, I swear. And I ran him by my service sponsor, Jimmy, because I'm without a sponsor at this point. And I reached out, I'm blowing you up, Pete, to Pete. And I said, could you be my sponsor? He said, let me think about it. I'll call you back in a couple days. I know him 27 years. He used to walk me around as a newcomer. Went to his 5th or 6th year anniversary with him. Why not an automatic yes? I'm Tommy T from Staten Island. I'm low maintenance at best. All you got to do is hear some inventory. Come on, how much time is necessary? Pete turned me down. Peter has a very busy, recovered life. But I don't think that was the reason. We're really close friends. We've gone through stuff together in sobriety already, where it's not that. For me, a sponsor is a reverent type person. We go to a meeting, I get my sponsor a chair, I get my sponsor a cup of coffee. I don't care that I'm 62 years old, 27 years sober. That's my guy. I don't know if I'm going to do it with the service sponsor too much, but you know. But that's my guy. Peter works the type of program that I respect. That's why I asked Peter first. I ran the other names by Jimmy, and Jimmy, I love him. He's got more useless AA knowledge in his head, like those 225 promises in the big book. But if I was on that $1 million question show for AA, and I had that phone call, you're my guy, Jim. We're getting that million. I'm calling you. And who was Bill Wilson's first illicit affair? Oh, I'm going to call Jim. Jim knows that. So I showed him the names, and Jimmy doesn't hold back. He said, Tom, I know how you work your program. I know the kind of guy you are. I think you're taking an easier way out here. These are guys that you would overwhelm. You would dominate these guys. Why don't you just take it to prayer? Pray about who you should ask to be your sponsor. He already knew somebody in his head, but he didn't give me a name. So I start praying. My home phone rings. Nobody uses the home phone except for telemarketers, right, and political stuff. Nobody calls the home phone. So I pick up the phone while I'm praying. I'm break prayer, and I pick up the phone. Hello. Hey, Tommy T, it's Harold Long from Missouri. How you doing? I put my hand on the phone. I said, not this guy, God, please. If any of you know Harold, He is the busiest guy in AA. He's a bow hunting pastor in Missouri. This can't be right, God. I mean, this can't be. So he asks me to do a big book workshop with him and with guys on Zoom, and I said, of course, Harold, I'll be honored to do it with you. And I said, you got a minute? He said, yeah, sure, what's going on? I said, I think you heard my sponsor passed away. He said, yeah, I did. I'm really sorry about that. I know you guys were close for a long time. And I said, well, Harold, I know you're very busy, but do you think you could take another sick and suffering alcoholic on? I'll be happy to walk this walk with you, Tommy T. I was like half happy, half like shit, you know. But he went on to say, well, we're going to do a few things. Okay, what's up? Well, we're going to have this covenant, he said. You're going to be honest with me, I'm going to be honest with you. We make mistakes, we're going to clean them up. We're going to talk about our inventories, we're going to keep it business. I said, I could do that. We call it spiritual consent up in our neck of the woods, but, you know, covenant, you're a religious guy, I get it, right? He said, you mind if I have your wife's phone number? No, I don't mind. He says, because I don't think you're telling me the truth about your marriage. I'm going to give her a call. You okay with that? In my head, I'm like, what do I got, 90 days? Like, what's going on? And what about those kids you're always bragging about? Can I have their numbers too? I said, yeah, you can. He says, good. We're on a good start. He says, you have any AA commitments? I puff up my chest. I said, yes, I do. I'm the treasurer in my home group currently. I always maintain a commitment there for the last 26 years. And I said, and I'm the service sponsorship for Staten Island General Service sponsorship chair. He says to me, no, real commitments. Are you going to any jails or institutions? No, but I could call into group and see what's available. You do that, Tommy T. We'll talk Saturday. Have a good day. And I've been on this journey with Harold for the last 2 years or so. It's been wonderful. It's been different, but it's been wonderful. The life that I've been given here, I don't want to lose. I have so much more to lose than when I came in here. I had nothing. That's why I surround myself with guys like Pete, guys like Jimmy. Believe me, these guys do not care about my feelings. They love me enough to tell the truth. And that's our job here. You know, you see that newcomer that's having trouble and he's on his phone in the back, politely take that phone from him. Don't post on Facebook what a nice guy he was when he dies 3 weeks later. All right, pay attention. Come on, let's sit up front. Take them with you, sit up front. This is life and death. I surround myself with men with more time and stronger programs than me, always. I don't just hang out with my sponsees. I don't share inventory with my sponsees. Some guys do that. I need to get to a level of inventory that is embarrassing for a 62-year-old man to write. My tone with my wife, the way I roll my eyes with my wife. I can cut my family up just by doing, I don't have to say anything, okay? I'm not actively as sarcastic as I was. What are my actions like? How am I practicing these principles in all my affairs? Peter and Jimmy both have the same sponsor, wonderful guy, Bob, in Minnesota. I call that guy like once every 3 weeks, once a month. He's old school AA. He's sober 55 years. He doesn't tell you to pray or meditate, do inventory. He just tells you what to do and then calls you an asshole and hangs up. These are the men that are in my inner circle. And of course, Harold, my sponsor. So I got 5 go-to guys that know everything about me. It's not all pretty. Things aren't all perfect. But that debt of gratitude that I have to the sponsor who worked with me so many times and listened to so many inventories and took me through the death of my parents. We're in a crew that not many experience. My parents died in 2007, 35 days apart. Joe walked me through that with dignity and grace. I could not do it by myself. I pray all day long, not because I want to get closer to God or rise above you folks. I'm still fearful. I have fears. I have a job that I feel like I'm working in over my head all the time. I'm in a relationship with a crazy AA that came to me with 3 children. That boy I abandoned is back with me. Well, he's not in my house now, but he was for many years. He went through a heroin and alcohol addiction. He's sober with us 7 years now. And they look to me as the steady figure. I say to myself, how messed up are you guys if this is what you're dependent on? I pray. I seek counsel. If I can't get Pete, I can get Jim. If I can't get Jim, I can get Bob. And if I can't get them, I'll get Harold. Harold and I Zoom every Tuesday at 5:30. And we do our thing. I got to look him in the eye and tell him what kind of a man I was last week. I haven't thought about alcohol or drugs in 25 and a half years. It just came. So my little message of hope in closing is that I am always at my home group, a half hour early. Talking football with the guys, you know, how bad the Eagles are and the Giants are great and all that stuff that we do. You know, I'm talking in hindsight, you know, right? Nowadays, can't really say that. And I'll joke with the girls, although they have absolutely no interest in me. I'm an old man, and I'm trying to get that through my thick head. But, you know, father figure is something, I guess, you know. But as I'm doing that, as I'm having fun, which we should be doing here, because if you're not having fun here, you're not going to stay here. And if you don't have a job here, you're not going to stay here. My eye is trained on that door. And I know exactly what a new, you don't have to put up your hand and say you're new. I know. You can't even look yourself in the eye, let alone us. You're looking at your shoes, your hands are shaking. Oh, I got 3 days back. No shit. Right? Oh, and you're sitting in the back row. Oh, what gave you away, right? But I don't care if you look like me, if you talk like me, if you have the same political values as me, doesn't matter. What color skin you got doesn't matter. None of that shit matters here. It's Alcoholics Anonymous. And I will give you my number, and I will take yours because I remember how hard it was to make that first phone call. I didn't make it, and I suffered for 18 months here. I will always look to speak to the new man or woman and introduce those women to some strong women we have in our home group. And I will go to my commitments faithfully. I take them seriously. I dress to impress to the best of my ability. When I go there, I don't go in sweats and shorts and stuff like that. I'm representing the big book. I'm representing God. That was the deal I made in my third step. I show up for AA in the best way that I can. And sometimes that's kind of messy, right, where emotions take over on us. But what a life. I do this because I want the rest of my life to be the best of my life. And with your guys' help and with God's help, I think we could do that. Thanks a lot for having me down here.